Welcome, future clinicians. First day of Gross Anatomy. I've got to say, I am absolutely thrilled to be your guide as we kick off what is, without a doubt, the most critical and, yeah, probably the most pungent journey of your entire medical careers. You'll get used to the smell of formalin, I promise. Now, in this explainer today, we aren't just sitting around memorizing body parts. No, we are learning the structural blueprint of the human machine. The rigorous academic journey you're starting right now will literally shape how you see, how you diagnose, and how you heal every single patient you encounter from here on out. Okay, let's dive into this. Before we can even think about diagnosing anyone, we have to define our terms. Anatomy, at its core, is the scientific study of the structure of living organisms. But as future medical professionals, you need to recognize the key distinction in how we study it. Gross anatomy is what we can literally see with the naked eye. You know, the organs, the bones, the macroscopic muscles you're going to be dissecting in the lab. Clinical anatomy, though, that's how we take that structural knowledge and apply it directly to medical diagnosis and treatment. This is the absolute foundation of your future practice, because simply put, you cannot fix what you do not fundamentally understand. So here is your syllabus for today's orientation. We're going to examine the structural hierarchy of life, take a really rapid survey of the organ systems, do a deep dive into the body's functional frameworks, and finally, we'll wrap up with the clinical lexicon. It's a strict macro to micro journey, so let's get started. Section 1. The structural hierarchy of life, or as I like to call it, building the human machine. Let's move to and see how this builds. Because the organization of your future patients happens in 6 incredibly distinct steps. We start at the chemical level with atoms and molecules, think H2O and DNA. Those come together to form the cellular level, the absolute basic units of life, like neurons. Then, groups of similar cells bind together to form tissues, like epithelial or connective tissue. Tissues then combine to create an organ, say the heart or the liver, which has a highly specific vital function. Coordinated organs create an entire organ system, like the cardiovascular system. And finally, all these systems integrate perfectly to form the complete organism, the living, breathing human body sitting in front of you in the exam room. Moving right along to Section 2, a survey of the organ systems. I want you to think of this as taking your first clinical rounds through the different wards of the body. The organism you'll be treating is divided into 11 totally interconnected systems. We've got the skeletal for support, muscular for movement, and nervous for control. The cardiovascular system transports, respiratory handles gas exchange, digestive absorbs nutrients, and endocrine regulates everything. And rounding it out, the lymphatic system manages immunity, urinary filters out waste, reproductive generates new life, and the integumentary system, which is your skin, serves as the ultimate protective barrier. They all work together in this breathtaking continuous coordination. It really is a marvel. All right, Section 3, Functional Systems Deep Dive. We're going to zoom in on 4 critical systems that provide the framework and control for the human machine: skeletal, muscular, nervous, and cardiovascular. 206. I just want you to pause for a second and really internalize that number. 206 bones make up the adult skeletal framework. This system is absolutely not just some coat hanger for your tissues. It's a deeply dynamic organ system. It's crucial for mineral storage like calcium and phosphorus, and it provides the rigid structure that you will one day need to cast, pin, and repair in the trauma bay. Now, what's really interesting about this is a fascinating developmental reality. Human babies actually enter the world with around 270 bones. Yeah, 270. As we grow up and develop, a bunch of those individual bones actually fuse together. It's this brilliant piece of evolutionary design that gives a baby the flexibility needed during birth and rapid early growth, eventually culminating in that sturdy 206 bone adult framework. Now, clinically speaking, we divide the skeletal system into 2 parts. First, the axial skeleton. That's your skull, the vertebral column, and the ribs. Those 80 bones are dedicated primarily to the uncompromising protection of your vital organs. Contrast that with the appendicular skeleton, the 126 bones of your limbs and girdles. Those are almost entirely designed for motility, letting us interact with our environment. Oh, and keep this in mind. Within these osseous structures is where hematopoiesis happens. That is the literal production of blood cells your patients rely on to survive. Structurally, these bones come in 4 distinct flavors. You've got long bones, like the heavy-duty femur in your leg or the humerus in your arm, which act as the levers. Short bones, like your carpals and tarsals in the wrists and ankles, allow for really complex, compact movements. Then there are flat bones, like the skull and sternum, which are basically your body's protective shields. And finally, irregular bones, like the incredibly intricate vertebrae that guard your spinal cord. Draping right over that skeleton is your muscular system. This accounts for about 40% of a person's total body weight, with over 700 named muscles. But you really must differentiate between the three main muscle types. Skeletal muscle is voluntary and striated. That's what you're using right now to hold your pen and write notes. Cardiac muscle is found exclusively in the heart, working continuously, involuntarily, and rhythmically. And smooth muscle is also involuntary, but it lines our hollow organs, quietly controlling things like digestion and blood pressure. Trust me, when smooth muscle misfires or cardiac muscle gets deprived of oxygen, you have an absolute clinical emergency on your hands. Governing all of this machinery is the body's ultimate command center, the nervous system. It's bifurcated into the central nervous system, or CNS, which includes the brain and the spinal cord highway. Get this, the brain alone houses a staggering 86 billion neurons across its 4 lobes. Branching out from that central hub is the peripheral nervous system, or PNS, which then divides further into somatic voluntary control and autonomic involuntary control. When we look specifically at that autonomic involuntary system, you really have to understand its dual control mechanism. The sympathetic nervous system governs the fight or flight response. It accelerates heart rate and mobilizes energy. The parasympathetic nervous system counters that exact response with the rest and digest state, which calms the body back down. As a clinician, understanding this involuntary physiology is absolutely paramount. Why? Because it directly dictates your patient's vitals during moments of extreme stress or physical trauma. 60,000. Honestly, this is a number that should inspire absolute awe in all of us. There are roughly 60,000 miles of blood vessels intricately woven throughout the human body. Think about that distance. To service this vast network, a normal adult heart has to beat roughly 100,000 times a day, just relentlessly pumping 5 liters of blood to keep all those cells alive. Let's look closely at the body's plumbing that makes up those 60,000 miles. Arteries are your high-pressure outbound vessels. They carry oxygenated blood away from the heart. Veins return the deoxygenated blood back, and they uniquely contain tiny valves to fight against gravity and stop backflow. And bridging them both are the capillaries. These are the microscopic, super thin-walled sites where the actual crucial exchange of gases, nutrients, and waste between the blood and living tissues happens. Okay, Section 4. The lexicon of clinical anatomy. This is the universal language of medicine that you are going to speak on the clinic floor every single day. I want you to ask yourselves this. How do we communicate precisely when a life is quite literally on the line? If a trauma surgeon asks you for a location, you absolutely cannot afford ambiguity. Layman's terms are dangerous in medicine. We must adopt an exact, highly specific anatomical terminology to ensure there is zero miscommunication between medical professionals. So, starting right now, today, you must forever abandon simple words like front and back. They're gone. If a structure is towards the front of the body, it is anterior. If it is towards the back, it is posterior. And this brilliantly illustrates how we talk about limbs. When we navigate spatial relationships on an arm or a leg, the reference point is always the trunk of the body. If a fracture is closer to the limb's point of origin, say up near the shoulder, it is proximal. If the injury is further away, down towards the fingertips, it is distal. Similarly, when you're evaluating wounds or planning surgical approaches, depth matters immensely. Superficial means a structure is near the surface of the skin. Deep means it's located further inside the body. A superficial laceration might just require a quick bandage, right? But a deep puncture wound? That could easily compromise vital organs. Finally, we view the body through these invisible slices called anatomical planes. The sagittal plane divides the body into left and right halves. The coronal plane slices it into anterior and posterior halves, and the transverse plane cuts horizontally into superior and inferior halves, top and bottom. You need to be able to visualize these planes instantly because they dictate everything from how you'll perform a gross dissection to exactly how you'll read MRI and CT scans in the hospital. So the crucial point is that you now hold the foundational map, from atoms all the way up to complex systems, from the rigid framework of your 206 bones to the massive daily output of your cardiovascular plumbing, and of course, the strict clinical lexicon required to navigate it all. You are now officially prepared for the Gross Anatomy Lab. You've seen the sheer brilliance of human engineering today. But knowing the parts? That's really just the beginning. Fixing the machine when it breaks down is a lifetime's work. So, as you pack up and move forward to the clinic floor, which system will you dedicate your life to saving? Class dismissed.